Man, Cowboys Nation, what a wild week 6 that was. You could feel the frustration all over the locker room, and honestly, it's hard to blame anyone. When you put up that many points and still walk away empty-handed, something deeper is going on. Watching that game back, there were moments when everything looked like it was finally coming together. The play calling wasn't bad. In fact, there were a few sequences that were drawn up perfectly. That 4th and 4 call, for example, was absolutely on point. But sometimes, football isn't about the play itself, it's about execution. Kenneth Murray just hesitated a second too long, moved his feet instead of driving where he was supposed to, and that tiny mistake blew up a perfectly designed play. That's how thin the margin is in the NFL, man. You can have the right call, the right look, and still fall short because of a half step. What stood out to me after the game was how nobody threw anyone under the bus. Shoddy could have easily called guys out, but he didn't. That tells you something about his character, about how this team is still trying to stay together through the rough spots. You can see the frustration in the eyes of the players, though. They're trying to stay positive, talk about finishing drives, and staying resilient. But there's a different tone creeping in now. You can tell they know these losses are on the details, on those small moments that keep flipping the script against them. Hearing from the locker room, it was like a mix of anger, disappointment, and determination. Guys like Y and Shy, man, they were doing their best to keep their heads up. Y had a solid game, no doubt, but you could tell it didn't mean much to him without the win. He said it straight. It's disheartening to put everything on the line and still come up short. And when he talked about execution, that hit hard. They knew what kind of coverage they were facing, they'd studied it, prepared for it. But when the lights came on, they just didn't finish. That word, finish, it's becoming a theme for this team. Every player mentions it, but now it's got a heavier weight behind it. Then there's that bit about CeeDee maybe coming back soon. Everyone knows what a boost that would be. Dak and the offense have been finding rhythm, and getting another weapon back could open things up even more. But even with that, you can tell they're aware that talent isn't the issue here. The offense is producing. They're scoring around 30 points a game. That's elite-level output in this league. And yet, the win column doesn't reflect that. That's where the defense comes into the conversation, and man, that's where things start to sting a little. You could feel it in Kenneth Murray's interview. He was holding something back. He wanted to say more. You could sense that internal battle, where he knows what the problem is but can't just blurt it out. He mentioned communication, missed tackles, not being physical enough. Those are effort and discipline issues. That's not about scheme. That's about players handling their business on the field. When your edges aren't being set, when your line isn't holding up, it doesn't matter what play you call. The other team is going to impose their will. And when you're giving up over 30 points in 4 of 6 games, that says it all. The defense isn't getting it done, plain and simple. Then you look at the offensive side of things, and you just feel for those guys. They're doing everything right, moving the ball, scoring, staying composed. And yet they're walking off the field with that same empty look. One of the players said it best. We're putting up 30 a game, and it's still not enough. That's crazy, man. You can see the offense holding back in interviews because they don't want to point fingers, but it's written all over their faces. They're frustrated. They're tired of saying, we just have to execute, when it's obvious that one side of the ball is carrying the load and the other side is sinking it. And even then, you got guys like Wayne stepping up and saying exactly what fans have been thinking. We got the best offense in the league, and I feel terrible. That's raw emotion right there. That's what happens when you're giving it everything you've got, week after week, and it's not enough. You can see that this defense knows they're underperforming, but saying, we'll be better, doesn't mean much unless they start proving it on Sundays. You can't let teams run on you like that. You can't let them dominate time of possession, and you definitely can't be sitting around watching the offense light up the scoreboard while you keep giving up drives that eat up 6 or 7 minutes. And look, the frustration isn't just from the players. The fans feel it, too, because we've all seen what this team is capable of. This was supposed to be the turning point, the stretch where the Cowboys stacked up wins heading into the bye week, sitting at 5-3-1, or even 6-2-1 if everything clicked. But here we are, looking at a record that doesn't reflect the talent on this roster. The pieces are there. Dak is sharp. The receivers are producing. The offensive line is holding up better than expected. Even the play calling has improved. But when your defense can't get off the field on 3rd down, or when you're giving up chunk plays that kill momentum, all of that gets wasted. And I know Jerry's probably looking at this and thinking the same thing fans are thinking. Something's got to change. Whether that means bringing in new faces, switching up the rotation, or even adjusting responsibilities on the coaching staff, whatever it takes, because this can't keep going like this. You can't waste an elite offense in this league. These windows don't stay open forever. There's urgency now, and you can sense it in every post-game interview. Still, there's something to be said about how these players handle adversity. They're not quitting. Even when the emotions are running high, they talk about getting back to work, studying film, tightening up the details. That's what you want to hear, but it's time for those words to translate into action. You can't keep saying the same thing week after week. This next game, at home, against a division rival, it's got to be different. This has to be the game where the defense makes a statement, where they remind everyone that they can play physical football, where they stop letting teams dictate the pace. The offense is doing its part. Dak's been calm, composed, and efficient. The receivers are winning routes. The play designs are there. But football's the ultimate team sport. If one side isn't pulling its weight, it all collapses. That's what we're seeing right now. You can talk about resilience all day, but resilience doesn't mean much if you're not fixing the root of the problem. These guys know that. You could hear it in their voices after the game. This wasn't just disappointment, it was accountability. You could tell they're owning it. But owning it and fixing it are two different things. And now, heading into the next matchup, that's what's on the line. When you look at how that game unfolded, it's clear the Cowboys are at a crossroads. They've got the offensive firepower, no doubt about it, but that defense keeps dragging them down. You can't ignore what's happening on that side of the ball anymore. Watching the film, it's not just one guy or one busted coverage. It's a pattern. Missed tackles, poor angles, and a lack of urgency in those crucial downs. You can't win consistently like that, especially not in a league where every inch counts. When you give up nearly 200 yards on the ground to a back who literally said, "Buckle up," before kickoff and then backed it up, that's a wake-up call. That's a gut punch to every defensive player in that locker room. And what makes it even more painful is that the Cowboys knew exactly what was coming. They spent all week preparing for it. They talked about it in the press conferences. They said the same things the coaches were saying: set the edge, control the line, make tackles, play physical. But once the whistle blew, it all went out the window. That's not about not knowing what to do. That's about not doing it when it matters most. Kenneth Murray and a few others admitted it after the game. It wasn't scheme, it wasn't communication issues, it was just not playing with enough physicality. That's a brutal thing to admit, but it's also the truth. They got pushed around. And when you're wearing that star on your helmet, that's unacceptable. The energy after the game was heavy. Nobody was laughing. Nobody was making excuses. Just long faces, a few short answers, and a clear sense that they're tired of talking about what went wrong. You could see it especially in Wayne's expression. He wasn't angry at the offense. He was angry at himself and the defense. When he said, "We got the best offense in the league and I feel terrible," that summed it up perfectly. That's accountability, but also frustration that words alone can't fix. You can tell he's one of those players who's not going to sit quietly through another collapse like that. You could almost hear the tension in his voice, that mix of pride and disappointment. Dak and the offensive guys, though, they handled it like pros. They didn't point fingers, they didn't complain, but you can tell it's eating at them too. When you score 30 or more in multiple games and still end up losing, that's mentally draining. You start to question what else you can do. Dak kept saying it's about details, execution, staying consistent, and he's right. But there's only so much an offense can do when the defense can't get a stop. The whole any given Sunday mentality is real, but when it's happening this often, it's no longer random bad luck. It's a pattern that needs fixing. One of the toughest moments to watch was that final drive. The defense just couldn't get off the field. 6 minutes and change gone. No stops. No chances for the offense to even touch the ball again. That's the kind of drive that breaks your spirit as a team. You could feel the helplessness from the sideline, watching the clock melt away. The players said all the right things afterward. Go back to work, study the tape, get better next week. But deep down, they know that game slipped away because they got out-muscled and out-disciplined. That's not something film study alone can fix. That takes pride, effort, and leadership from within. And look, it's not all doom and gloom. There's still time. 6 games in, there's a lot of football left to play. But that's also what makes this so frustrating. because everyone knows how much potential this team has. The offense is humming. Dak looks confident. The receivers are creating separation, and the play designs are getting more creative. The line is holding up, and even with a few injuries, they've been able to protect and move the ball. You can win with that formula, but only if your defense holds its end of the bargain. And right now, it's not even close. You can sense that something's going to have to change. Maybe it's personnel. Maybe it's attitude. Maybe it's just simplifying things so players can react instead of thinking too much. But one way or another, that locker room needs a spark. Someone's got to stand up and demand more, not in a meeting room, but on the field. Every team that turns it around during a season like this has that one moment where everything clicks, where they get tired of losing and start imposing their will. The Cowboys haven't had that moment yet, but it's coming. It has to, or this season will spiral fast. Even through the frustration, there's one thing you have to respect: the accountability. Nobody's hiding. Nobody's pretending it's fine. You can hear it in every interview. We just have to finish. We have to play more physical. We need to do our part. Those aren't empty words. They're players trying to keep themselves focused on solutions instead of excuses. But talk is cheap now. The Commanders are coming next, a division game at home. And that's the perfect stage to show if this team's identity is built on grit or just good quotes. Because if they let another one slip, that frustration's going to boil over, and you can only hold that in for so long before cracks start to show. Before we roll on, subscribe to Cowboys Wire News, drop a like, and turn on the bell. Your support keeps the Dallas Cowboys updates coming. Tell us what you think in the comments. Whispers around the NFL have been swirling all week, but now it seems the buzz might be turning into reality. MOSLEY, the veteran linebacker known for his sideline-to-sideline speed and ferocious tackling, could be heading to the Dallas Cowboys. Sources close to the situation suggest that negotiations have progressed rapidly, and an announcement might be imminent. If this move comes to fruition, it would instantly reshape the Cowboys' defensive identity. MOSLEY, a former first-round pick and perennial Pro Bowler, has a knack for reading offenses before they even snap the ball. His presence in the middle of Dallas defense could be exactly the kind of leadership the team has been missing. Rumors indicate that the Cowboys front office is betting on MOSLEY's experience to mentor younger defenders while delivering immediate impact in stopping both the run and the pass. It's a classic case of a proven talent meeting a team desperate for stability in the trenches. The chatter among fans and analysts is electric. Could MOSLEY's addition be the missing piece for a defense that has struggled to find consistency? Observers note that pairing him with Micah Parsons, one of the league's brightest young stars, could create a linebacker duo that terrorizes quarterbacks and disrupts opposing game plans on a weekly basis. Imagine the film sessions and the in-game adjustments. MOSLEY's veteran eyes reading formations while Parsons turns raw athleticism into highlight reel chaos. The synergy alone has insiders buzzing about a potential defensive renaissance in Dallas. Of course, as with all rumors, nothing is official. Contracts, medicals, and final terms can always derail even the most tantalizing prospects. But the whispers of MOSLEY in a Cowboys jersey are enough to get fans dreaming. One thing is certain. If this deal materializes, the NFC East suddenly has a defense to reckon with. The Cowboys sideline chatter just got louder, and everyone is waiting for the official confirmation. For now, it's all speculation, but speculation has never sounded so sweet. That's a wrap from Cowboys Wire News. For breaking Cowboys updates, subscribe, drop a like, and turn on the bell. Tell us your take in the comments.